putting the spotlight on local businesses in the capital city. This is 402 Business Insider with Travis Filing and Gary Tharnish on 1499.3 KLIN.
Good morning, Lincoln. You're listening to the 402 Business Insider, sponsored by Sartor Heyman Jewelers and Red Rhino Roofing. We're your hosts, Travis Filing with Transformation Marketing and Gary Tharnish with the Home Design Real Estate Group. How was the drive in?
You know, it was good. I like snow, actually. Yeah. So, but some people are driving like we have a foot already.
Oh, I know.
Ice, which is interesting, but I get it, you know.
It was slick out in the country.
Town. Was it?
Yeah, it was freezing to the windshield, and it's just it's that time of year. So.
Yeah, it's a nice soft snow.
Yeah.
Just easy to clear the drive.
If you're out there driving around, please be careful. This week, we're chatting with John Barry again, but this time we're going to talk about his book. We're going to skip our business lesson this week because the last time we had John in, we kind of ran out of time long before we ran out of questions, and we really just talked about the military and military service, and we didn't talk much about the law firm. So we're going to have you back again to talk about the law firm, which is probably the whole point. But
that'd be fun to do in Omaha.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And so the book is veteran led, which I've absolutely enjoyed the book. I really did. I usually read a book 2 or 3 times before I put it on my recommended list, but this one is on my recommended list. It's very well done. But I want to start out just kind of giving listeners a little bit of a background, just in case they didn't catch you, they don't know who you are or don't know about you. So you were, of course, your dad started the law firm, Barry Law, in 1965. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. And of course, you grew up in a law firm type house. Your dad was a veteran. You were a veteran. So let's start with your military service. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. A law firm type house. You know, when I grew up, the phone would ring day and night. You know, and it'd be very annoying. People would be calling my dad, and then the family would get upset. And my dad said, "Look, that's the sound of a cash register.
Yeah.
That's how we eat."
Cha-ching.
You know? So
like ring, ring, cha-ching,
yeah,
ching.
that sounds like billable hours to me.
Right. But and that's how things worked back then. But that was the key, I think, is understanding that sense of urgency, that sense of service. And when someone calls, you're there, right? And that's what my father did as a lawyer. And then I learned, from going to Vietnam veteran reunions with him, seeing and hearing some of the stories that, it started long before, he was a lawyer in Nebraska. It was helping fellow service members. And I think that's what really drew me to the military. Now, my dad, of course, will brag and tell you that there's been a Barry or a Stevens in every war in the United States since the Revolutionary War.
Wow.
So he's very proud of that. So
I love it.
I probably didn't have a choice, but I loved the camaraderie that I saw with my father and some of the veterans that he served with. The stories were great, but you just got a sense of like they were very proud of what they did. Like they knew their life mattered, not because of who they were, but because of what they did. And I think, and to me, that was, I was as a young boy, it's thinking about like, what can I do that is going to make, is going to excite me and keep my life exciting and fun, but also meaningful. And as I got older, you become a teenager and then those things don't matter. There's girls, there's, all these
teenage
other things.
Time.
Yeah.
and then, I was in college and, I went to a military high school my last 2 years. So I was very familiar with the military. Okay. And I had no desire to go in. And then I was...
where was military school?
New Mexico Military Institute in Roswell, New Mexico.
Okay.
So there's some famous alumni there. Conrad Hilton, Victor Lowndes, if you know who he is. Hugh Hefner's right-hand man.
Lots of aliens.
Yeah, Roger Starbuck. But yeah, so
nice.
I went there and it was amazing. It was a great school. But what I really liked about it was the structure. I mean, it was, you did your sports, you did 2.5 hours of study hall every night. It was very regimented. And I really, really enjoyed it. I learned some great things too about every day. There was daily room inspections. We had to clean our bed, clean our room, make the beds with the hospital corners. Now if everyone's heard Admiral McRaven's speech on make your bed.
Yes.
I will.
Yeah.
Hey, if you want to go, if you want to own a Ritz-Carlton and do that, like, great, go make your bed. But for me, that's a waste of time. And I hated to imagine. I mean, it's great to make, hey, if you're going through training for a couple months and learn how to make, but every day of your life making hospital corners, that is 4 minutes You know what? If you want to get in shape, you got 4 minutes to do as many push-ups and sit-ups as you can in the morning. And if you want to be a lawyer, you can read a rule of evidence, and just think about it and think how it's going to apply to your case every morning. So there's so much you can do. If the first thing you're going to do is the most important thing, and I get it, look, build on those little wins, but anybody can make a bed. Anybody can make a bed, and I believe that skills compound. If you can do 2 push-ups today, maybe you can do 3 tomorrow, 4. But if you make a bed, you don't compound that skill. If you want to make the best bed in the world, that's great. They will love you at Motel 6.
Yeah, I don't really. So that's fine.
See, I just get out of bed before my wife does.
Yeah, I'm in physical therapy right now for my spinal stenosis, and it is amazing. First off, doing the exercises are important, but what was real challenging and painful 4 weeks ago is now just, we're going to add this to that because they're doing it great. It does compound. I'd much rather do that than make my bed. Well, I don't make my bed. There we go.
But yeah, that was my whole thought is
I throw the sheets up.
I don't want to go back to this.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to and I knew that if I went to an academy, right? Because when I did my application, I was looking at going to West Point, and that I had to, you go talk to your elected officials, congressmen or senators, get the appointment, and I went through that whole process. And then the reason I wanted to play football in college. Okay. And William and Mary recruited me as a fullback. West Point recruited me as a linebacker. I didn't want to be a linebacker, and so my my cousin, who was a surface warship officer stationed in Norfolk, Virginia, is like, you got to check out William and Mary. Like, they're Division I AA, or what is now called FCS, and we went to William and Mary campus. It was beautiful. I went to their camp that you go to between your junior and senior year. Really liked it, and I ended up going as an invited walk-on. I didn't have the 1300 on the SAT to get in as an out-of-state student. Went in, rode the bench, but I had great leaders on my team. Mike Tomlin, Sean McDermott were both my teams, now both NFL coaches.
Oh wow!
But nice. I rode the bench, got injured my what would have been my redshirt freshman year or my sophomore year, and I was gonna have to sit out a year. And at least a year, you're not the doctor, look, I can't guarantee anything, but all I can guarantee is you're not gonna have contact for 1 year. And back then, we didn't have these wireless headphones that the coaches have now. If you were injured, you were on the sideline carrying the coach's cord. Yeah. And I just, that's not what I want to do. And it was heartbreaking because that was my dream, but I wanted to do something challenging. And I read this thing about Army Rangers. I'm like, man, I've been trying to eat 7 meals a day to get up to 220 pounds. These guys are eating twice a day, getting 3 hours of sleep. There's no way, no human can do this. And then, so the more I thought, this is what I want to do. And so I figured even though I had some injuries, I figured that I still want to challenge. I knew I was going to go to law school, but I wanted to challenge first, and I wanted to serve. And just everything I wanted was right there. And so it was really easy for me to make that transition. And the last 2 years of college, I did ROTC. I got commissioned as an infantry officer. From there, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia.
And what year was that?
1997.
Okay. Very good.
And so you were in during 9/11?
Yeah.
Or did you get out just before 9/11?
That was the interesting. So I went to Bosnia in 99, right when we were bombing Kosovo.
Okay, sure.
And things heated up, and we thought it was going to turn from a peacekeeping mission to maybe
a war.
Yeah, some scale of combat operations. That didn't happen. And so I came back, and there was a program where junior officers, they were downsizing the military.
Okay. And
junior officers could do their last year in the reserve component. So the downsizing, they didn't have National Guard and Reserves did not have lieutenants and junior captains, or enough of them. So they said, come do this. We'll give you tuition assistance for law school. And I did it, and it was great. And then 9/11 happened when I was in law school. I was shortly thereafter assigned company command, and then shortly after becoming a lawyer, enough to be sick of it, about 2 years of it. I got. I remember going to my commander saying, "Hey, sir, look, I'm working, 70 hours a week. I'm doing my command stuff on the weekend. This is 7 hours a day. This is like a lot, and I gotta figure this out." And he's like, "Well, you don't have to worry about that. Your company is deploying to Iraq. You're going to get alerted." And here's what's happening. So that was kind of interesting about the whole Tim Walz thing, and people don't know. We knew because people told me, but also I could tell because I was a company commander. I could see we were about 60% strength. I could see more every time more bodies coming in. They're filling all my slots. I'm like, okay, we know we're going. Yeah. So we knew. So I knew I was going, and so that I spent a year and actually it's more like 18 months of the train up down in Fort Riley, but spent a year in Iraq as company commander. Great experience. Came back, was going to get out. Then they made me the company commander of the Officer and Warrant Officer Candidate School. Loved that. I loved training junior leaders. And then I ended up becoming the battalion commander of the Officer and Warrant Officer Candidate School later. And that was where I ended my career. But I loved training leaders. I loved, having that remote team that I would check in with. I had a full-time staff as a battalion commander. I wasn't there. I was practicing law, but I could check in with my team and I knew things were getting done. And that's really, at Barry Law now, we have over 220 team members, across about 11 states. Mm-hmm. And we even we're looking at some team members in Colombia now. Right. Yeah. And so, but when you can lead remote like that, I learned that in the military. I learned it, that you can't be everywhere.
Exactly. It's transitioned perfect into what you do now.
So that's kind of how everything came to be. And that was but
for a young listener that might be listening now, any age actually, but somebody that's thinking of serving, what would you suggest they do first? What route would they take? Would you just have them go talk to a recruiter?
My best advice is jump in. Doesn't matter.
Just go feet first.
Yeah. Go feet first. I've had friends that have served in multiple branches. They thought one of my friends, a great guy, Ryan Henderson, wrote a book called Tip of the Spear. He didn't, I think he wanted to be Air Force. He ended up going Navy, and then there was a transition program that got him into Army Special Forces. So you don't know. All you know is you want to serve. Yeah. Get in there. Just don't have the whole analysis process. I don't know what branch I want to do. I don't know what MOS. I don't know what I want to do. If you're a high performer, go for it. The military will let you go where you want to go.
And it's all about the training too. Yeah. I mean, that's what's setting you up for life. Just in reading this book, it's all the training that you went through that has set you up to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've noticed, and the other thing too is, like I said, the military will get you there, but you don't always get what you want right away. It's the needs of the military that come first. Mm-hmm. But for the people that I know that have stayed in, it seems like they always eventually got what they wanted.
Sure.
It may have taken a while because the needs of the military were something different than what they wanted.
Yeah.
But the opportunity would arise. So jump in, just join, serve your country, build those skills now. If you don't, you'll probably regret it.
Yeah. Well, we have a break coming up here. So just want to give a quick shout out. Thanks to Mendoza Family Insurance, one of our sponsors. Mendoza Family Insurance is one of those agencies that actually picks up the phone when you call. They know you by name. They do home, they do auto, they do business. They help you understand what you're buying. They don't just sell you a policy. So go check them out. Mendoza Family Insurance. That's MENDOZA, familyinsurance.com. You're listening to the 402 Business Insider. I'm Travis Filing. That's Gary Tharnish. We're talking with John Barry of Barry Law. And when we come back, we're going to dive into this book, Veteran Led. So we're going to be back right after this.
$1,499.3 KLIN.
You're listening to the 402 Business Insider, sponsored by the Cabin Virtual Indoor Golf and Western National Bank. Today, our guest is John Barry of Barry Law, and we're talking about the book that you wrote, John, Veteran Led. So why did you choose to write a book, first off?
So it started off as trying to capture the leadership lessons. In the military, we have the AAR, the After Action Review. We try to capture those leadership lessons and then implement them, right? So we want to keep iterating those lessons and reiterating them, and so that we can become better, right? That's the goal. So at Barry Law, the issue was there were leadership lessons that I kept relearning. And then it was even more frustrating when team members kept relearning them. In other words, we kept making the same leadership mistakes. And it was, it was driving me crazy. So I said, okay, that's it. Like, everybody has an operations manual. And, any mature business has an operations manual, standard operating procedures. But the problem I figured out was not many businesses have a leadership manual that really talks about who we are as an organization. And so it started off as a leadership manual, and then I began to outline a book, and I started hiring, some of these predatory companies that will tell you they'll help you write a book. They just do interviews. They use back then a primitive form of AI to write, and it was just garbage. And look, I was an English major in college. I had the Cali Award, or the highest A in advanced legal writing in law school. So I knew what good writing was. I just didn't have time to do it. And so long story short, it took me about 3 years to get it done because I didn't have the time. I found some good editors and along the way and ended up getting it done. But the reason why I wrote the book was for the team. So whenever a new team member comes to Barry Law, they get that book.
Sure.
And my staff reads, and look, I'm like, hey, quote it back to me. If I'm wrong, and I make a lot of mistakes, if I'm wrong and I'm not in line with this, in integrity with what I've said here, chapter and verse, quote it, call me out.
Sure. Sure. I love it. It's a great way to lead. I mean, 3 years is not that long to write a book. Actually, you did it well. So that's good.
Yeah. And I'll say too, that it is, there's no fluff in it. There's no trying to add some pages, trying to get to whatever the goal was, 200 pages or whatever it is. It is solid information from beginning to end, which is very impressive because a lot of business books even have a lot of fluff in them. This really doesn't.
Yeah.
And so when did the book come out?
Veterans Day of 2024.
Okay.
So
it's just been about a year out.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can
And
probably
sales,
find it everywhere.
sales going well?
I didn't write it to sell it. I don't know. I don't know how many copies I've sold, but I've given away thousands, and I think it's better than a business
That's
card.
cool.
Books cost generally, depending on what the quality, $5, maybe $10 at most
Sure.
to print. So for $5, I can give you a book. And it was very interesting when I was I met with Senator Tillis from North Carolina about some political stuff regarding veterans, and I gave him a signed copy of my book, and he didn't remember anybody else there, but he's like, "Who is that guy that was a veteran that gave me the book, that wrote the book? He's the guy I want to,
Sure.
So, so a lobbyist told me, he's talking about you. I'm like, oh my God, So it like I said, so the lobbyist relayed the information that he was asking about the guy that wrote the book, and back then he was the SVAC, so they had the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee, and so this guy remembered the book, and I found that. It's just been a great tool to also, if someone reads it or listens to an audiobook and leadership, I think philosophies align. I've recruited a lot of great people that way. They say, yeah, this is the organization I want to be in. But it holds our team accountable. So I never wrote it to sell it. I have sold copies. And of course, there's ways that people game the system. I think I am one of the Amazon bestsellers in one category.
Sure.
That happened, but everybody can be an Amazon bestseller in one category. I think the only ones right now that might be legitimate are New York Times and maybe USA Today. But a lot of these categories, it's all pay to play. It's all gamified. So so I don't go around there. I see people putting the links. I'm a bestseller, but the truth is, like, anybody can be a bestseller. It's all there's a whole system for that. But the interesting thing that came out of the book was while I was waiting for it, I'm a very impatient person. So I'm waiting for this book, and finally, and I'm trying to get the things done, and it's just frustration. And I'm like, you know what? I've got most of the chapters written. Let's just start a podcast. I'm just going to start putting that information out there. Because the goal is, right, we want clients who are like-minded, but we also want talent on our team who believes what we believe. So I just started pushing it out, and starting a podcast was probably just as difficult as writing the book.
Yeah, sure.
There's a lot of, it was kind of the same thing. There's podcasting companies out there. Some of them are good. Some of them are not. Most of them are good to get you started, but to get to the next level, you need other things. I had to hire a guy to coach me. I was listening to myself on podcast as a guest. I'm like, man, I'm a great guest. I went in as a host. You guys know how hard it is to actually host a show. I was like, man, I think I'm a great guest, but I'm a terrible host. and for me too, as a lawyer, I want to cross-examine. I'm like, I got to back off, let them talk. I got to shut up. And then other times it'd be like, okay, I got to control the conversation. This person's going way off the rails. Now we edit our podcast. So, not that big.
It's not live. Yeah.
No, it's not live. So we made someone's like, okay, we got to cut half this, or this 30-minute podcast has really got about 5 minutes of value. So let's just get the 5 minutes of value out there.
Yeah. It really is tough. And that's one thing we do it live. And so you have to put in a ton of work, and people don't realize, even podcasts, you do a podcast, it's a ton of work. It's a ton of work, and you're a busy guy. I mean, you're not just sitting around going, what are we going to do this week? So
I love that you use your book as a business card, though, because one of the keys to success in my mind is to be memorable when you meet people, right? So you leave the room, there's one guy, he's like, who is the guy with the book? Where's that book? Who is that guy? It makes great sense. Also, I love the way that you give it away. The more you give, the more you get, really, at the end of the day. So I love that it's not about money, and you wrote it
and
how
sincerely
people become better.
If you pick up one client from giving away it's going to pay for 10,000 books or whatever it would be. So I think that's a brilliant marketing strategy.
Yeah, and it opens other doors too. I was speaking at the Johnny the Jet Rogers the scholarship, the foundation in Omaha, and the main sponsor there, they said, "Hey, we really like what you're saying." And I said, "They said, can I get your book?" And I said, "Yeah, here's like 12. Just give it to her leadership team. Here's 12 copies." And they invited me. Now I'm going to go speak in Arizona to their, in January.
Sure.
In January in Arizona, I'll definitely do it. But I think it opens doors that way. And the other thing I would say about, the interesting thing about running the book for podcast guests, they kind of know what they're getting into. And I find I've had some fairly high profile guests, but also just a lot of regular business owners,
Sure.
But one of the, I've had some podcast guests, but hey, I know, listen to everything. We need to approve everything. And then yesterday I had Congressman Don Bacon on there, and I'm like, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I don't care. Whatever I say, it's good." I thought, I appreciate that. Yeah, I've seen both ends of the spectrum where someone's very controlling, saying we need to edit. We want an internal team to edit it. We want to look at it, and then the other people say, "You know what?" And we want to see the questions ahead of time. And then, but it was refreshing to see that congressman say, "You know what I said is what I said. Publish it." So that's great.
Well, we got 1 minute back till a hard break here. So want to give a quick shout out to the UPS stores of Lincoln. Thank them for sponsoring the show. For business owners, the UPS store is more than shipping. It's printing, it's mailboxes, it's signs, it's logistics. They actually will save you time. So if you run a business, the UPS store is a great local resource. 5 Lincoln locations. And you're listening to the 402 Business Insider. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish. We're talking with John Barry of Barry Law and author of Veteran Led. And we'll have more about the book right after this break.
LIN.
We're back on the 402 Business Insider. Gary Tharnish, Travis Filing, and we're talking with John Barry, CEO of Barry Law today. This segment is sponsored by the Integrated Behavioral Health Services. And it's time for our segment, which is 5 takeaways. This is where we get 5 things our listeners can apply to their business, or in this case, if they want to write a book, start a podcast, or do YouTube videos. This segment, 5 takeaways, is sponsored by the Nebraska Farmers Network. John, what's the first piece of knowledge you have now that you wish you would have had when you started the book? Tough question, but it's like
a tough one.
I mean, I think all the knowledge was there, right? I think it's just a matter of consistency. And I would take this back to when I was about 31 years old. I decided I needed a new challenge. I was going to run a marathon and do a bodybuilding competition. Now, I'd run a half a marathon in less than 90 minutes. So I was like, well, running the marathon, that's not. But the bodybuilding, I started looking at it. I'm like, okay, you got to spend about 8 weeks bulking up. And that sounds great. Hey, 4 weeks of eating about 5,000 calories a day, work out about 4 to 5 times a week. And that's consistency, and you build the muscle that way. But then when you need to get lean, you still have to be consistent, but it changes. And then the next thing you are moving that lean phase where you're working out 6 times a week, and you're doing 2-a-days, lifting in the morning, cardio in the afternoon, right? And it's a different type of consistency. And then as you get closer to the competition, you got to do things you don't want to do. Like for me, I don't dance, so I had to learn how to pose to a routine, music, and then I had to take classes on posing, all this stuff, like, almost like ballet type stuff, like how the body moves. And I didn't want to do that, but I had to consistently do that to get good. And then by the time, you're about 4 weeks and you're cutting carbs out, you have to consistently not eat carbs. And the worst thing is the 1 week before where you start cutting back your water. Because if you do it wrong, you're going to retain water on stage and look bad. Now, by the time you get to the stage, all the work is done. It's, you're either going to, it's like you can't not perform, you're going to perform.
Yeah.
And you're going to perform based on your preparation. But what I really, what I didn't understand from the book, the podcast, all those things was that consistency, it compounds, but it's not always the same thing. It has to be consistency of effort to get you there. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing the same thing day in, day out. Right. What it means is you have consistent effort, you have consistent focus, but the actions that you are going to take to get things across the finish line are going to be different, and you have to be prepared for that.
Wow. So now just looking through the list here, building a mission-driven team. Tell us about that. What I mean, you've built your team, and your team is pretty amazing because I know a few of the guys that are with you. So tell us about that, how you built your team.
Yeah, well, number one is, to build your team, you have to lead from the front. It's just, the thing I've noticed about my kid, people say, it's just leading soldiers is like, leading your children. And it's totally true. I was very athletic, involved in working out and taking care of myself and eating healthy. And both my kids now, one's, my daughter's 20, my son's 17. they take that very seriously.
Mhm.
So I just say, it's leading by example. It's being out front and doing the thing. People are less scared, but they also see it can be done. When you have the conviction as a leader that this can be done, and a lot of times you got to show them you're going to do it, because it's one thing to get out there and talk with conviction.
Mhm.
It's another thing to act with conviction.
Well, yeah,
And
actions speak louder than words.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you got to be able to do that. But then, building that team, I think it's got to be, you got to build yourself first, right? Nobody is going to follow John Maxwell's, I think 15 Laws of Leadership ones. They're not going to follow a lesser leader than themselves.
Yeah.
So you have to be that leader.
Yeah.
And sometimes being that leader, once again, I want to get back to consistency, because sometimes being that leader doesn't necessarily mean that you're number one in metrics. That's the way when I first started running the law firm, I'm going to build the most hours, win the most cases, show everybody that I can do it all. But a great leader will let everybody else do it.
Yeah. Walk alongside them and help them
Yeah.
make sure they have what they need to succeed.
Remove the obstacles and
Yes.
provide guidance.
Yeah.
I don't believe you can provide motivation. I think people are either motivated or they're not. But you need to do that. And so when we talk about having a mission-driven team, the first thing is you got to look at yourself as a leader and say, am I mission-driven?
Mhm.
Am I
Right.
personifying this? Then you want to go out and hire people who believe what you believe. It's one thing to have core values. And look, we have core values. We've got posters of the core values. We've got the core value awards that we give every quarter. And I thought I was doing a good job. But it wasn't until our quarterly meetings, our all hands, or I tell people, these are our core values. Let me tell you a core value that we made a really tough decision. And this is the core value, why we made that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Or this is a core value that we didn't follow, and this is how it hurt us. And so I think you have to be vulnerable and honest about those core values. So if you're going to have a mission-driven team with real values, you've got to be willing to live and die for them, and then admit when you don't live up to those values. And so, but as far as the mission itself, right, you also have to tell the story, and you'll be able to tell it in about a minute or less. And for us, it's, look, I can tell you about thousands of veterans that got their disability, we helped get their disability benefits, which helped them get more treatment and opportunities from the VA, and it changed our lives, right? So we tell those stories. I mean, we have hundreds of testimonial videos, on YouTube from clients who want to share. They want to tell that story. And so when we have team members, just either that resonates with them or it doesn't. And if it doesn't resonate with them, they don't want to change that life, then that's great. But the other thing is, most of us in the veteran community know that, the suicide issue is real. And
Sure.
what we found out was getting veterans their disability benefits and make sure they got the medical treatment didn't solve the suicide problem. They needed a mission and a purpose. And if we were going to lead by example, we had to show that we could serve the veteran community leading with purpose, and we could provide a mission. And so at Barry Law, we try to keep our number of veterans to about 30% or higher on the team, which is hard as we grow, but we want, if I could have all veterans, I would do it. But the key is to really, I think, live that mission-driven, those mission-driven values every single day, but also to tell the story to the team. And if it resonates, they're on the team. If it doesn't, then it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I would add this, that just because they believe in the mission doesn't mean they're a right fit for your team. And a good friend of mine, Aaron Newell, AR Solutions here.
I know Aaron
Gang.
really well.
Yeah. He sent me a thing about a book I read a while back. He reminded me, Top Grading. And we're implementing that across the organization. There are great people in the military. Where I've made mistakes as someone comes out of the military, they might have leadership skills, but they don't have the base skill. The leadership skill from the military, you layer it on top of that. That is a game changer. That is a force multiplier. But if they don't have the basic skill first, it's not gonna go anywhere.
Sure.
So you got to hire people that have the basic skills, and then you layer on that veteran leadership. So that is really that's more getting into the third lesson, which is communicate clearly. And for that, look, if the message is right, if the audience is right, the message will always be right. So you have to communicate clearly. I think you have to have people that are bought into the mission and want to do what they want to do, because people are going to see and hear what they want to see and hear.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're bought into the mission, they're going to hear things. And look, one of the leadership lessons I've learned for communicating clearly has been, if I talk to you, Gary, and I ask, we do a performance review and I tell you some things, I need to ask you these important words, or tell you these important words, or ask you, what did you just hear me say?
Oh, I do that all the time with my clients.
And
it's so important. It's
Oh,
crazy. Well, I said, no, I did not say that you could go buy furniture and pay for it 2 years from now when your DTI is at 49. I said, don't do that. Yeah, that's so true. I started doing that about 3 years ago with my clients after about a year in, and I was like, man, game changer, big time.
Yeah.
Really big time. Also, I would venture to guess that your training in the military helps you be consistent through stressful times. Because I've seen leaders fail big time. Well, failure is one road to success, depending on how you deal with it. But where I've seen people under stress just lose it all. Like all the training, all the what we're doing goes out the window. And I would think in the military, you can't do that under stress, because if you're being shot at, you need to have a focused mission. And I see that in you a lot, where it's just like, this is our focus. We have a process, we're consistent with it. I think that's absolutely huge. And I love the fact that you communicate with all of the team clearly.
Yeah, you have to be a clear communicator, especially in stressful times.
Yeah.
And I think back to an important lesson I learned in Army Ranger School. We would do the back brief, right? So everybody's tired, everybody's exhausted, they're deprived you of food and sleep to simulate combat stress. And at the end of the operations order, you say, bravo team leader, what are your actions on the objective, right? And then once it's the back brief, what did you hear me say? So I think in times of stress, it's really important to slow it down and make sure everybody understands. And I think sometimes when people start feeling the stress, they internalize it. And for me, my weakness is when it's not a time of stress, because then I start I start picking things apart. I mean, I am hyper vigilant. They teach us to keep our head on a swivel. We're always looking for the enemy. We are always assessing threats.
Sure.
And so, there are things that maybe something's not going right in IT or finance or marketing. And it's, it's like, this isn't a problem now, but it could potentially be a problem later. And, I really beat up my team over it. And I find that as a leader, I need to get distance, headspace and timing, as we would say, distance, get away from it, because when I'm just adding more stress. Okay. And I learned this when I was the battalion commander of the Nebraska Officer Warrant Officer Candidate School course. I had a leader say, you know what? When you show up in the room, stress level goes up. You shouldn't be here all the time. And so, let them relax.
Yeah.
And if you're here all the time, they're going to get used to you and you're not going to be able to raise the stress level. So I think that's really the key, is in high stress situations, you understand whether you're bringing stress to the situation or whether you're removing it. As a leader, your job is to remove obstacles. And sometimes the best thing you can do is just tell someone they're doing a good job. That's all you got to do, is just, hey, you're doing a great job. We're proud of what you're doing here. And then get out of the way.
Yeah, because recognition, it means a lot.
And you do talk about that. Is it NCO business?
Yeah, NCO business. Yeah, your non-commissioned officers, let them do their jobs. And that's the thing what I love about top grading is I'm hiring people to do amazing work. And if I have, if I have to try to motivate you or train you on things that I've hired you to do. Now, training is good, but basic skill stuff, we don't have time for that. And in a high stress environment, just think about you go down on patrol and somebody doesn't know how to use their rifle, right? It's like, no,
that's not good.
That's not good. So the goal to when you're in those high stress situations is to avoid that stuff. Do your planning, do your rehearsals. That way, when it becomes high stress, it becomes second nature. And I can't remember, I think the Navy SEALs take credit for this, but it's not that we rise to the level of expectation, we fall to the level of our training. And so a lot of things people say, well, how do you handle all this stuff under stress? Well, it's repetition. It becomes, and we would do battle drill after battle drill preparing for deployment, so that when we got hit with an IED, a sniper, whatever it was, we were ready. It was going to be second nature. It was going to be muscle memory.
Yeah.
That this is exactly how we will respond to this.
Yeah.
And so, that's how you prepare for those moments of stress. They're going to come.
On the NCO business, the thing that it really interested me, because it's letting your team do what you trust them to do. But you talked about, you were walking, I think this was when you were in Iraq, you stepped into a room, here's everybody that's under your command. What are you guys talking about? They're having a meeting, right? And it's like, what are you guys talking about? NCO business. And for you to go, okay, and then step out of the room as a leader, you go, what are these guys talking about? Right? Are they going to frag me? Because I think you even said that in the book.
Yeah, no, this is in Bosnia 1999. So I was still a first lieutenant, so I was relatively green, and this was my first deployment. And I go in there, and they're all sitting there, talking.
Room gets quiet.
And the first thing comes to mind is like, did I just miss a meeting? Yeah. But but they're talking, and I'm like, and I was like, I wanted to know, hey, is this about me? Is this, do I need to be involved? And the thing is, like, I didn't need to be involved in it. Okay. Like, I don't know what, and I think someone as a leader, look, understand the metrics, understand your objectives, set priorities, but let your team figure it out. You don't need to go to every meeting. And that's one thing that I think, I struggle with because I want to win. I want to make sure everybody is on the same page. I want to over communicate. I want clarity. And so, hey, there's a meeting, and maybe I'll drop it on this meeting. Now, I will tell you, in my office, I have the battle rhythm of Barry Law. I have every single meeting that goes on, every single repeated meeting. I have a chart of it on my wall. So I know exactly when people are in meetings, and I can drop in if I want to, but I generally don't unless I think that I can add something, because I find that a lot of times I jump into the conversation and they're 3 steps ahead of me. And as a leader now, when I'm hiring great talent, a lot of times, like I said, I just got to remove the obstacles and get out of the way, but then choose the right people. And then here's the toughest thing: be brutally honest when it comes time for evaluations. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be brutal. Brutal honesty does not have to be brutal. You don't have to be mean to people.
Right.
There's a way you can deliver information to people that can help them improve. That does not sound like an attack.
Yeah.
So, I think that's that, and that gets into, discipline. Look, discipline and systems, when you have that, you don't have to worry about it. When you have discipline and systems, you have consistency. Okay. That's why discipline and systems matter. If you have systems, great. But if you have the discipline to make sure they're running the way they're supposed to be running, you're not going to be consistent. You're not going to be a good leader. But if you want, when you think about the long game, it is all about just compounding. Discipline and systems compounding results. So you're going to build the systems. You have the discipline to stick with them. You're going to get there. And that really, takes us into, taking care of your people, because if you can trust them to do that, it's going to provide bigger, better opportunities for them. And what I think about is, when we talk about taking care of the people, in the Army would say mission first, people always. But the people on my team, they want to be challenged, not coddled. And you really destroy people when you coddle them.
Right.
When you
micromanage them, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that again that's something else you talk about in the book. We see this every day. These people who want their free lunches and their nap rooms and all these wants that the employees want. You're creating a terrible environment. You're not creating an environment to win, and you go in depth in that in the book. Because we had employees, this is forever ago, and it was such and such's agency. They have unlimited time off. And this agency it's like, well, it looks like you found some great places to put some applications, because we don't do that here. We're here to win for our clients. And that's our job. Our job is not naps and free food. So that's something else. Is sometimes taking care of people doesn't mean giving them everything they want. It means giving them a structure to succeed themselves.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just giving them enough, space to fail. And that was one of the toughest things for me. In the military, if you're training, I had no problem with a young captain would come up with a bad plan. And I'd be like, are you sure you want to do that? And he's, yes, sir. Okay.
But think about it as a chess game. Yeah. What's going to happen 3 moves later?
Right. But then you deploy and you're overseas, and now there's real America's sons and daughters' lives are at risk. This is no longer a training exercise. Yeah. Now you can't say, well, we'll just see how. Let's say, no, you're not going to learn that lesson. Yeah. I, as a leader, am going to take control because it is on me. And I find in business, it's the same way, where there are real dollars, there are real clients, there are real futures involved. And so it's hard sometimes to back off and say, I'm going to let you handle this and fail. Yeah. So look, the problem is you only learn through failure. And I think, look, we've all been in life. You're going to get hit. You're going to get hit in ways that you don't expect. And that's one of the worst lessons about life, is that you can prepare for a lot of things and protect yourself from a lot of things. But the things that are going to probably hurt you the most are the things that you didn't even see coming. And it's, there's, fair is, the only 4-letter F word that I don't tolerate, because there is no such thing as fairness. I think you do people a disservice when they start thinking about what's fair. Fair is a word used by spectators who sit on the sidelines, but the man in the arena, when you're on the field playing the game and you got to win, fair is not.
I love you, John. I would always tell my kids all the time, life's not fair. Yeah. Life's just not fair. I hate that you say that all the time, Dad. I said, well, life's not fair. And first kid, 6 months in, Aaron's like, Dad, life's not fair. Right. Yeah, you got to grow into it a little bit.
Well, I look over, Alex, my son, is in the studio with us today, and he's smirking, because when he was a kid, he would say, this isn't fair. No problem. Do you want it to be fair? Because I'll make it fair. No. Yeah, no, you don't want it fair.
Right.
I mean, we will
exactly.
make things fair if that's what you're looking for, but no, you don't want things fair. That's nails on a chalkboard to me.
Yeah.
Well, we have a break coming up here. That was 5 takeaways brought to us by Nebraska Farmers Network. I want to thank them for being a sponsor. NFM, they exist to support Nebraska farmers and ranchers through education, advocacy, and connection. It's strengthening agriculture and the communities that depend on Nebraska farms. They are Nebraska owned. They're here for farmers. Check them out at NebraskaFarmersNetwork.com. Also want to thank Wyuka Cemetery for sponsoring the show. They have been serving Lincoln families for generations, helping people honor lives, preserve legacies with care, dignity, and respect. Check them out at wyuka.com, WYUKA.com. You're listening to the 402 Business Insider. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with John Barry of Barry Law about his book, Veteran Led. We'll be back right after this.
99.3 KLIN.
Thanks for sticking with us through the break. I'm Travis Filing with Gary Tharnish. We're talking to John Barry from the Barry Law Group. We're talking about his book, Veteran Led. Something that, and this segment is sponsored by James Arthur Vineyards. Something that drives me nuts as well. You talk about fair, drives you nuts. But the other one that drives me nuts is you're so lucky. And you talk a lot about your lucky generals and hiring lucky generals and whatnot. It's, you make your own luck, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
That's, and how do you find those people? Because you talk about in the book finding quote unquote lucky people.
Yeah, that was actually my favorite chapter to write. So it goes back to Napoleon. He won. I can't remember which war it was. He wins, and his critics said, well, the only reason why you won is because you had lucky generals. And Napoleon retorted, well, then I prefer lucky generals. Eisenhower says something similar, over a century later. But the concept is this, right? Luck. Look, I don't care how you get the results, as long as it's legal, as long as it's ethical, as long as it's moral. Like, do it. Do what you know how to do. And so people will say, well, this person got lucky or that person got lucky. And why? Because they did something you didn't do. And I would say this, look, to be fair, success comes from 4 different things, right? It either be strategy, execution, timing, and luck. And so if someone is lucky, well, that's one of the 4. I will take them all day long. And you can say, well, their results are based on luck. Well, we're all lucky. We're all lucky to be alive right now. I mean, you look at, to live in the United States, the greatest country in the history of the world. We live here now. We are so lucky. So you've already got that thing going for you, right? And you're in Nebraska, which is a pretty good state to live in. Mm-hmm. That is all, that's all by luck. Some of us by choice, but some of us by luck. But I don't know. And it doesn't matter. The point is, we're here. We have opportunities. And some people capitalize them, some people don't. I mean, Joe Ricketts wrote the book, the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? And it's so true, because you can control your actions. You can never control the outcome. And I say this in relationships, you may be in a romantic relationship and you're doing everything right, and it turns out the other person just doesn't like you, or they're a bad person, whatever it is. Hey, keep doing the right thing. Right? You didn't get the result. You can't control the outcomes, but you can control your actions. And so I believe that in business and everything else, we have a strategy. Sometimes the strategy isn't good. Sometimes the tactics aren't good. Okay, we learn from them. But the point is, once again, if you work consistently, then there will be luck. So lucky generals are the people who win. And you don't want the unlucky people. The unlucky people are the people who always seem to be late to work because they had a flat tire this week. Last week, the cat got out. The week before that, they had an issue with the hot water heater and blah, blah. And really, it's a failure to plan. And a lot of times, bad luck is just a failure to plan. Do bad things happen? Absolutely. But they happen to all of us. Right. So why is it that some people are successful and some of them aren't? Yeah, some people have more luck. There's no doubt about that. But if you can show me a past history of success, and you want to call it luck, that's fine. I'll take it. But I want to see that past history of success, because I know that if you've done it before, if you climbed that mountain before, then you can probably climb it with me. And whether you are lucky or not getting to the top, that's okay. I know you can do it.
Yeah.
That's great.
And I love to, you're talking about flat tire. You talked about that. I think somebody when you were training, somebody had a flat tire and complained about it. And the staff sergeant I think I should probably let you tell
Yeah,
the
yeah.
story.
No, this is a great story. So this is my chief operating officer, Chad Collins. He came from a $1 billion law firm. So AmLaw 50 at the time, so one of the 50 biggest law firms. I worked for one of the 4 largest financial institutions. Was like a platoon leader in Iraq, company commander in Afghanistan. And I gave him credit in the book because we talked through a lot of these things, and he helped me with some of the pieces of it. And he's like, I remember when I was a cadet, I showed up for ROTC training and I was late. I legitimately had a flat tire. And so the staff sergeant calls me out in front of all the cadets and says, Cadet Collins here failed the plan, and that's why he's late. And, let me tell you what happened. He got a flat tire, but he didn't have a contingency plan. He didn't show up early enough or leave early enough so that if he had a flat tire, or he didn't have a buddy he could call to pick him up if he had a flat tire or whatever. So he just went through and eviscerated Chad. I said, look, you should have had a plan for all of this stuff, because in the military, if you don't have a contingency plan, you will get killed. And look, like everybody said this garbage about burn the ships, burn the bridges. Hey, that's great if you're scared to build a 2-person company. But once you get bigger, you have to have something we call PACE in the military. Primary plan, alternate plan, contingency, and exfil. Exfil means I'm getting out. And so if you're a leader, you need to have all those plans. And so if you have a flat tire, you're late, right? You're late because you didn't have a plan for a backup ride. You didn't have you didn't plan to get there early enough. You didn't communicate with your team enough, because guess what? When Chad went there were 20 other cadets driving down that same road who could have picked him up, but he failed to coordinate. So this young staff sergeant just eviscerated him. And I love it, because that's it. Look, if you're unlucky, it's on you. And we've all known unlucky people, and they made bad life decisions. Look, I heard this somewhere. By the time you have a face tattoo, you've already made a series of decisions that have led up to that.
Right.
It's like someone just wakes up one day and says, I want a face tattoo. And then maybe I don't like the face tattoo. Well, how did you get to that point where you're going to, and once again, nothing against tattoos. The military community has a ton of tattoos. Unfortunately, they don't like tattoos on the face in the military for some reason. But
I love it.
Yeah, I always get killed when you look at people who have those tattoos. It's like, I'll take a cup of coffee from that person, but I'm not going to take financial advice from somebody with a face tattoo. You've made some bad decisions in life. But
ouch.
On planning, it is something for us, like when we hit COVID, nobody saw COVID coming. And when it hit, we had backup plans, not necessarily for a pandemic, but we had backup plans for when business dries up. And we were one of the first things people cut. When you can't go to a restaurant, the first thing you cut is marketing. I can't be open. I'm not going to tell people to come down and have dinner. So it is something that it's a great business lesson, is start having backup plans, because like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get hit in the face. And it's absolutely true.
Well, I'm planning. I mean, that's a big thing right there, planning for it. A lot of times, if I have a listing appointment, which I have today, I spent several hours planning. I don't want to walk in and have them go, think we have enough square footage in this house? And I don't know what it is, amongst a million other things. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's very, very important. And showing up early and being there early is also a great big deal too. I always like to get the house early. If I'm showing someone a house, I have it open, lights on, ready to go, make sure it's warm in the house. Those types of things make a big difference. And I've had other realtors, I've been doing this for 30 years. I never do that. Well, what was your GC? Oh, it was a really bad year. Well, bad behavior compounds as well,
Yeah. Well, and I always get to the station 15 minutes early, unless it's military guys that are coming in. Then I get here 30 minutes early, because you guys are always like 25, 30 minutes out. You guys are here. And so I had Jason from, I can't think of Hero Stock. He was sitting out in the parking lot waiting for me. I felt like such an idiot.
I like what you brought about COVID, though. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with Tony Goins here, former director of economic development, a great business, great leader. And so Tony, story about what you talked about COVID. So Tony one time asked me, have you read Stan McChrystal's book Risk? And I'm like, no. And he says, well, I know Stan. And so I was going to be in Alexandria, Virginia, and I had dinner with Stan McChrystal thanks to Tony Goins. And as I read the book, like for COVID, we had a plan. The military had a plan. We had a plan on the shelf to deal with this exact problem, and we didn't execute it. And we didn't pull the plan off the shelf. We didn't execute. And some cities did better than others. But the point was, we had a plan.
Yeah.
The United States had a plan for pandemics. I know when I went to the Command General Staff College, we worked on some similar where you're working on like simpler projects. So there was a plan. But once again, it's if you forget the plan, you don't execute the plan. That's a whole other issue. So yes, the planning is important, but you got to remember what the plan is. Write it down. What is planning is? What is it? Eisenhower that said planning is. I can't. Well,
it's always tough when
it's okay.
It's right there.
Yeah. Bring it up on the other end. We got to go to a break. We want to thank Lincoln Coin and Bullion. Blah, 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 blah.
There we go.
For sponsoring the show. They've been a trusted local resource for precious metals, rare coins, and collectibles, helping customers buy and sell with transparency and confidence. They'll also help you understand gold, silver, and tangible assets as part of a long-term strategy. So you can learn more at lincolncoinandbullion.com. You're listening to the 402 Business Insider. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish. We're talking with John Barry of Barry Law, author of the leadership book Veteran Led, and we will be right back.
KLIN.
And we're back on the 402 Business Insider, sponsored by the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with John Barry about his book, Veteran Led. And this segment is This Needs an Adjustment. This is a segment where we see things that happen within our business that you go, this is not working, or this is working great. We need to adjust and do more of it. There was something in your book that really stood out to me. Yesterday, I got a phone call, and I think this was early in the book, and I kind of forgot about it. And then all of a sudden it all snapped right back into place. This woman had called and she said, "Hey, I know we went up and we looked at a roof on one of your buildings about 3 or 4 years ago. And I was calling to see if you actually replaced the roof." And part of me, it was like, okay, where were you 3 or 4 years ago when I needed the roof done? Part of me goes, well, good for you for at least making the call. That can't be an easy call to make. But in your book, you talk about time kills all deals. I have a roof. I needed a roof 3-4 years ago. Right. That's why I was calling you guys. And now the roof is done. You've missed the opportunity. So tell us about, when you start talking about time kills all deals.
Yeah, we've noticed this throughout the organization when we've dealt with vendors who were slow to respond, and we need a solution now.
Sure. Yeah.
If you don't if this is the most important thing to me, I'm gonna get it done. I am not going to be dependent on somebody else. I'm not going to have a single point of failure. And if that vendor can't perform, or that vendor's not going to be hyper responsive, I'm not going to work with them. And it goes back to, there was an attorney that applied to work with us and had been on the opposite side of cases. It was a good attorney, and I would have hired him for talent. But I said, look, I would call you. You would take 2 days to get back. You were a pain to deal with, not because you weren't polite or professional, but because you were non-responsive. Right. And I said, look, if you do that to I'm not going to take a risk that you might do that to my clients or to my team members. Now, look, I think there's okay to set boundaries as to when you're going to respond to people. But as a leader, you need to be hyper responsive. If your team is depending on you and they call you for an answer, you had better respond. And I find that I am more responsive than probably any of my team members. And people would say, well, and I have a friend who's highly successful, and he answers that cell phone. He is on it. He's going to answer it. That's just how it has to be, because you have to lead by example, and time will kill all deals. I've seen it happen where in contracts we've worked with other vendors, especially now with AI and technology, things are changing so rapidly that you'd better lock me in now for the thing that I want now, because I may not want it tomorrow, but if you can contractually lock me in, I'm a man of my word. You're going to hold me in my contract. That's great. Right. But the issue is when you want to get something done and it doesn't happen. I mean, I had a guy that was one of our vendors. Something changed in the industry. He flew out to our office the next day.
Oh, man.
And said, hey, I think this is a big opportunity. And I'm like, we could have talked about this on the phone. He's like, no. He's like, I want you to feel how important this is. Yeah. And we are moving with a sense of urgency, and we think this is going to be a huge benefit to you. Here it is. And, I was like, ooh, either this guy is really desperate or this is the exact partner I want.
Yeah.
So I would say just be on top of it, follow up, be that person that you want to be. But I can't stand people that delay. They don't follow up. I don't have capacity for them in my life. I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah. Follow through is so incredibly important. And it's one of the weakest things I find with a lot of different vendors and people, where it's just like how easy, okay, contractor doesn't show up on a house I'm ready to list. So I've got people that's 2 mortgages right now. They want to get rid of one. Things need to happen. You don't show up when you say you're going to show up. You're not answering your phone. You're not responding to my texts, whatever it might be. And then 2 days later, you call up with I had a flat tire, all the excuses why you didn't call. And it's like, this doesn't work. And finally I gave one sub a second chance. And after the second time, when he called 3 days later, I said, the job's done. I go, yeah, I called another sub. He was in here and got it done. He's my guy now.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you've always given me a lot. Well,
yeah, I'm not sitting around. I can't wait.
Right. You can't spend other people's money like that.
The reason I called you is because I'm ready to buy today.
Yeah, you need a roof. When you need a roof, you need a roof.
Yeah. And even,
funny.
As I go call and talk to people about sponsoring our show, I have sometimes, hey, our budget's spent for the year. Call me in January. Do you think I call them in January? There ain't no way I'm calling you in January. I'm calling you in November to remind you that I needed to call you in January. And then I call you in December and try and get things locked up before you start spending your budget in January. Because if I wait till January, your budget's gone.
Exactly.
Time does kill all deals.
And I'll just say this mindset is what makes America the greatest country in the world. When I was company commander in Iraq, we had a logistics mission. We had to get all these roads built. And I'm talking to a contractor, through an interpreter, and he says, "Inshallah, God willing." Right. And that was like, so are you going to get this done? Like, or not? Right. Inshallah, it will be done. So does that mean you're going to do it? And it was like, it was the unwillingness to commit to the objective.
Right.
And it was, and then there would be excuses.
Yeah.
And anyone, so when the contractor would say that, I was like, and so we had cultural training. I'm like, well, they said, oh yeah. No, I remember. So I called the guy and he said, oh yeah, no. That's like legit here. This is how this country works.
Yeah.
They're not going to commit to it. If there are more important things, and I'm thinking, well, how can I work with someone who won't commit to me? And how is it our government is spending billions of dollars over there with contractors who aren't, and I think that, but in America, capitalism, free markets, competition. This is where you're not going to say, can you do this? Will you do this? And getting someone to commit to it and then doing it. I mean, that's what makes us different and what makes us better. And I've been in a lot of different countries. And, I would just tell you, United States is the one place where we celebrate that. We celebrate that hyper responsiveness to questions, to whatever. And, it goes back to my, the quote I messed up, but Eisenhower, planning is... Oh man,
That's okay.
Yeah. Planning is indispensable. Plans are worthless, and it's doing the planning, and it's because when you do you're committing to action. Now, once you get punched in the mouth, you may have to change course. But you have to commit. You have to do the planning. So that's why the plans are indispensable, because you have to. The plans are part of the commitment to do it. Right.
Sure.
It's always said. Someone says, "Hey, I'll get this to you on Friday." I was okay. Show me your backwards plan. Nothing I learned in the military. Show me what you're going to, how are you going to get done by Friday? What are you going to do Thursday? What are you going to do today to make sure it happens on by Friday?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. I do.
I'm going to go grab this book today. I've got to read this book.
To. I will. It's also an audio book, by the way. So
who reads it?
I don't know.
That's always a big deal for me.
Okay. So one of my favorite books is Relentless by Tim Grover.
Okay.
He was Michael Jordan's trainer, Kobe Bryant's trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And so the guy that read his first book.
Yeah.
I was like, that's what I want. And
I'll try it that way. It depends on who reads the books.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool.
Yeah. Sometimes it can be bad. It's very well done, because I also have it on audiobook and listen to it. But we have a break coming up here. That is This Needs an Adjustment, sponsored by Ascend Chiropractic. When you need an adjustment, either in your business or in your body, do it before things get out of hand. Total chiropractic care for adults, pediatrics, rehabilitation, acupuncture, cupping, weight loss, you name it, they can help you. AscendChiropractic.com. Also want to thank Complete Family Dermatology for sponsoring the show. They provide dermatology care for the entire family, from routine skin checks to advanced treatments. They are all over the place. 11 locations. They're in Lincoln, Beatrice, York, Blair, Geneva, probably London, Paris. I don't know. They're all over the place. So I want to thank them. CompleteFamilyDermatology.com. I'm Travis Filing. That's Gary Tharnish. You're listening to the 402 Insider. More when we come back with John Barry of Barry Law.
KLIN.
And we're back for the last segment of the 402 Business Insider, sponsored by Barry Law. We appreciate you guys sponsoring us. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with John Barry of Barry Law about the book Veteran Led. Now, I'm going to give a ringing endorsement of this book because it is just has so many good, sound business principles. And I would say it's not just good for business owners. It is good for any type of leadership, any type of people who hope to become leaders,
parenting,
kids.
You can put it into everything.
When we were driving in, my son, he's an electrician, and I said, you need to get this audiobook and listen to it, because there are a lot of great principles in it that will help you if you ever decide that you want to hang up your own shingle and start twisting wires for yourself and not somebody else. One thing that you said in the book that I absolutely love is nothing kills a good employee faster than tolerating a bad employee. And that is so true, because in my business, we've had people who poison the well.
Oh, sure.
One person,
All
one bad
businesses
employee, and that good employee, they just kind of grit their teeth through the meetings. And you have to recognize that quick, and you need to make changes. So I imagine that happens a lot because you're 250 employees now or close to it. I imagine that there's a lot of that you still have to recognize employees, and are they doing what they're supposed to be doing?
Yeah. We're at 220 as of today. A good commander always knows his numbers. You gotta have accountability of your people. And here's, the thing is, everybody has a number, a metric, a scorecard. So it starts off with, are they doing their job to standard from an objective standpoint?
Sure.
Right. That's the hard stuff. Like that. That's the easy stuff. That's the easy stuff. That's table stakes, right? Are they doing the job to standard, or are they, if they're not doing the job to standard, then let's help them find somewhere where they can be successful.
Sure.
But in terms of the other stuff, right? The softer stuff, right? Like how they're leading. I've had this where I had a guy that was number 1 in the scorecard, but for promotion to a leadership position, he was number 3 because of some of the decisions that he made, some of the judgments that he made. I've had other team members that, like I said, they may be killing it with the metrics, but they're horrible with their team. And there are some people that kill it with the metrics, who will always kill it with the metrics, and they should never be leaders. Everybody's a leader, but not put in a leadership position, because they're really good at excelling at hitting their numbers. Like, let them go attack the target, but don't give them 5 people to lead, because they're going to expect those 5 people to be as good as them, and most of them never will be. And I respect those people. I love having people like that on my team.
Sure.
That dial in, and they are world-class at what they do. But the problem is, not many people who are world-class at what they do are also good leaders. Some turn into very toxic leaders just because they are so focused on their objective that they're oblivious to what's going on around them.
The wider picture. They don't see the wider picture.
But then there are also those who are toxic, who will destroy the organization from the inside. There's a guy named Dan Kennedy, and I won't use the terms he used because it probably wouldn't be appropriate for radio. But what he did say was this: look, if you go home at night and you have an employee that you're thinking about for more than 5 minutes, you probably need to fire them.
Right.
And the way I agree as a leader, if you have a team member and you are tolerating something, other people are suffering. Like, it.
Yeah.
And they see it as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then usually once that person leaves, then you hear the stories, and it's a lot worse than you thought. But I would just say this, if someone is toxic, if they're bringing down the team, there's someone on your team who's taking that home with them. And guess what? They're coming home, and they're giving their best effort to you and the team, and they're coming home and they're complaining to their wives. They're not present for their kids. All those thought bubbles that are popping up about this toxic team member are preventing them from being present. It is affecting how they interact with their families. It's affecting their enjoyment of life, which will ultimately affect how they perform for you. So in my if someone is toxic, if they're, if they like to gossip, spread rumors, if they tear down other team members, if they don't live by our core values, hey, let's try to, get them out of the organization, or weaponize them and send them to a competitor. Right? It's like,
I love it.
But
I love that.
That's a good one right there. So what's next on the horizon for Barry Law?
A lot of things. I mean, right now, between Nebraska and Iowa, we have 5 physical locations.
Okay.
I believe that our next physical location will be in a much more veteran-rich population. There are other states that have much more veteran-friendly laws that we found most veterans migrate to those states. And we have a lot of employees in those states. So, as we look at, we have, for example, we have 25 team members in Texas. We have 9 attorneys in Washington, D.C. We have team members throughout the country. And it's where do we have a lot of team members? Where is a very rich veteran population that we can serve? And that's where we're going to go.
I'm ignorant on this subject. So better veteran laws in different states. Are there a lot of state laws that have?
Sure. I mean, there are tax advantages.
Okay, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Sure,
so when you start, and there are educational opportunities. And Senator Tom Brewer did a good job of pointing all this stuff out. But there are other states that are much more veteran friendly when it comes to that there are.
What's Nebraska like?
States
I'm curious.
I mean, Nebraska's
okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there
could be better.
Senator Tom Brewer and some others have done a really good job of trying to improve those, and it's good. There are other, better climates too, right? So veterans, tend to go where they're going to, feel like they're going to have the most opportunity. And so for lower taxes, more educational opportunities, warmer weather, especially if you have a lot of, as you get older and you have disabilities, they get worse. And so it's, how do you do that? So we found that, there are a lot of veteran-rich communities that need our services, and we want to be there. On the other hand, because of COVID, most of our clients are not in Nebraska. Most of our clients are in those veteran-rich communities.
Sure.
Now we do have thousands of clients in Nebraska, but we have a lot of clients, more clients in other states that are where you would see more veterans, because that's who we're helping, that's who we're representing, and that's who resonates with Barry Law.
We're limited on time here, but I have a heart for people that feel like they're at the end of their rope and want to commit suicide. And I know suicide levels with vets is very, very high. So I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume, but I'm thinking some of that just maybe it's just hard to ask for help. So if somebody's out there listening right now and they are at the end of the rope and feel like that, and they're that, what's the most important thing they can do now before they take another step or go further down the depression road?
Yeah. So once again, look, and this is important because you can get your VA disability benefits. You can get the treatment from the VA facilities, but it's not going to solve that problem. You need to have a mission. You need to have a purpose. And if you're going down that road, I think the first thing is examine your mission, your purpose. And I get calls at Barry Law. We get a lot of calls, and we talk. We deal with that. A lot of them aren't even clients. And just, hey, we heard about you guys. I got a buddy that needs some help, and we know because we're a resource. We know where all the resources are, so we can direct them to the helplines.
Good.
And so we want to help the veteran community. So when we get those, we want to make sure we provide the right guidance. But when I get the personal calls, buddy, and it's like everything is falling apart. Why even go forward? Why not take my? So what is it that you would do if you could do anything? And they said, well, I would do this, this, and this. And I said, okay, well, if you're gonna be dead tomorrow, why not do it? Why not take the first step today and find out? Because if there's no tomorrow, then kidding. Why not do it today? And usually that gets people moving in the right mindset. It's like, if I'm not going to be around, because we're all worried about the future. But if you just think about being here right now, present, if there was no consequences for you doing what you dream of doing, taking the action you want to take, then do it.
Yeah.
So the book is veteran led. It's online. You can get it on audiobook. You can get it on Amazon. I imagine if I walk down to your office, there might be a copy or two laying down for the listeners out there.
Yes, any place where fine books are sold.
There we go. I love it. Thanks so much for coming in and talking to us. This is Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish with 402 Business Insider. We've been talking with John Barry, with the author of Veteran Led. Stay tuned for Grow Lincoln right after this.
Nice. All right.